Hunters. Arc-Tempered Ray Dau literally dropped from the sky, and with it the meta has shifted for the Insect Glaive. If you're still wearing Gormagala 4 set, you're missing out. Ray Dau armor hits harder and gives you more freedom. Today I'm showing you 2 builds that maximize your DPS and keep you going until title update 2. I'm Saber, let's get into it. So let's get into weapon first. Artian is still the meta, and as always, match your element to the monster's weakness or choose any element that can give a monster status effect. My recommendation is still to use 3 attack infusion parts to build your Insect Glaive. Reinforcing your Artian weapons, and just for now I'll just reinforce this Artian weapon with Thunder. My gut feeling says next Apex monster to have an arc-tempered version will be Uduna, so just basically looking forward to that, making a Thunder weapon with hopefully a good roll. Just making sure that we roll it and then see what happens, see how my luck will turn out. And yes, I know there are different ways to do this to get the perfect roll, but I'm lazy. Let me see what I just got. What you would like to have is 3 or 4 attack boosts and then 1 or 2 sharpness boosts, which I didn't get. You can basically scrap this and try again. But generally, if you look at this, it's not specifically bad. It will take about, I think this is about a 5-10% DPS loss, what you can get. And maybe that's over exaggerating things. While you want to have the best rolls you can have, in most cases, right? These can be fun, but you really want to have that at least sharpness boost, because sharpness is, I think, one of the things I'm struggling most with. So 1 or 2 sharpness boost would be great if you're going for the optimal weapon setup. Moving to actually going into what's the jewels you're gonna use. I normally use critical jewel 3 and critical jewel 2. And a flight expert jewel. So we got critical boost for damage dealt by critical hits by 40%, so it's always great. You want to have that at level 5. Critical eye is just nice to have, affinity plus 4. And airborne is jumping attack power plus 10, and that really comes into play with if you use some aerial attacks, but 10% extra attack power with your Rising Spiral Slash is just really nice to have. It is personal preference though, because in some cases I also go for Razor Sharp and then Handicraft, which is probably on another weapon, which I need to set, and they really need to change this because this is just annoying. 50% chance of no sharpness lost, and then weapon sharpness plus 10. It really depends on the personal preference here. There are other options you might consider. Mind's Eye Jewel, a better chance of your attacks not being deflected. For instance, you can also, for instance, I see a lot of people using the Mastery Jewel. 80% chance of no sharpness lost while active. So your weapon, jewels and decorations is really personal preference, right? There are a lot of options, but critical jewel, at least 1 would be always my way to go. And then you can mix and match a little bit on what you like on the weapon and which monster you're actually fighting. With the weapon out of the way, let's get into the Kinsects for a quick second. So for Kinsect, I normally stick with the Arc Maiden with the Kinsect Boost Harvest Extract, so you can get 3 extracts at once, and the Kinsect Boost Fast Charge, basically reducing your charge speed by like a half a second or so, which is really useful. But there are also other options you can use, like the Whisper Vesp. Really good, has the attack power boost, which is a good option, and the fast charge. You will lose on Harvest Extract though. You have to have a little bit more skill with this specific Kinsect in my opinion. What it's going for it is that it has speed, so the speed is really good. So this might be another option. The other option you have is the Fiddle Bricks. The only difference between the Arc Maiden and the Fiddle Bricks is severing against blunt. I like blunt damage a little bit more than severing damage, but also here personal preference. I use Whisper Fen or Arc Maiden the most. Currently Arc Maiden just for the Harvest Extract, but Whisper Fen as well. I'm gonna try to work with that a little bit more. You're losing on the Harvest Extract boost, but you're getting an attack boost. So really, if you want to push yourself, this can have that little bit of extra damage, especially for the speedrunners among us. With that out of the way, let's get into the armors. Let me show you how this first build shines. So the first build I'm going to show you, one of my favorite ones, I'm using it all the time, so hopefully you enjoy it. Starting off with the Ray Sandhelm. Really good skills, weapon exploit, maximum might and stamina surge, and also has as a decoration a 3-slot jewel, which overall is really good. You really want to have more jewels to be honest, but for this build it actually works. For the Numerous Shroud, 2 levels of Agitator, same decoration, composition again, only having 1 3-slot jewel, which is really okay, but we really want more, but yeah, we cannot have everything. So for the arms we have the Ray Sand Bases a really good piece. And we have Evade Extender, which for the Insect Glaive is just a very good skill overall to have. And we have 2 decorations of level 3 jewels, which is just really good. So I think that this armor piece will be in a lot of builds these days. You can say this piece, the waist, we go for the Ray Sand Coil. So it doesn't have any decorations, which makes it off, but it just having latent power level 2 and maximum mind level 2, it really combines really well with the Sand Helm. Basically having maximum mind level 3 with only those pieces, so you don't really need any decorations to spend on it, which makes up for it not having any decorations, so that's good. For the legs you go for the Iceshard Cliffs, which is an overall good piece, has Agitator level 2, which basically helps you to get, for only armor, Agitator to level 4. So for the Power Charm, we have the Power Charm level 3, basically giving you 3 levels of latent power and basically raising it up to level 5. Mantle, just to finish it off, it's the Corruptor Mantle, but I think that everybody gets that one. Going into overall, we have the Tenderizing Jewel in the head, and then we have the Tenderizing Jewel in the chest, just for that extra weakness exploit, which just to add a few levels there. Challenger Jewel, just for that last level of Agitator we need for level 5, and then the Chain Jewel, just for 1 level of Blast for that extra damage. And then I have 1 set of earplugs in, and combine that with 3 extracts, you actually have earplugs level 2. So you basically immune for most roars during most of the fight. Just sometimes you can be unlucky, but most of the roars you can just deal with. So let's go to the overall skills. So critical boost to increase damage dealt per critical hits by 40%, really good. Razor Sharp for the Razor Sharp Handicraft Jewel. So for some reason I now have the Razor Sharp Handicraft Jewel in. I switch that out for the Blind Expert Jewel sometimes, so just it really depends on what my fancy is. I do notice with the damage I'm doing that sharpness is getting an issue because I'm losing sharpness really fast. So I'm just playing around with that. Most of the time though, I will go for the Flight Expert Jewel just because it gives the extra 10% damage to Rising Spiral Slash. Handicraft here for just that weapon sharpness. So Agitator, attack plus 20 and affinity plus 15 while active, which is just really good because Agitator is pretty much active all the time. And pairing that with Latent Power, which is also active a little bit later, but it gets active quite fast. So it gives you a 50% affinity boost and reduces stamina depletion. I still have some weakness exploit in there and just level 3, but this gives you 15% affinity with 10 extra on wounds, which is just giving a really nice damage boost, and maximum might for an extra plus 30 affinity while active. Using Evade Extender, like I said, really good for the Insect Glaive, just moving around, and some burst for some extra stats increases after the 5th hit. Stamina Surge, just overall just good to have, and earplugs. So we also have the Ray Dau Voltage, just to extend the activation of the latent power, which really pairs with the overall set. And I think what really makes the set overall good is the Guts that we have. So Guts Tenacity is actually a really good skill because it gets you a get out of jail free card. So in the background I'll have the build in action. The drawback of this build that it doesn't really have any recovery or any skill to get your health back easily or mitigate damage. Having this, if you make a mistake, you're not directly dead. And everybody being there when Arkfeld just slams you with his change and cuts you right away. Yeah, I've been there as well. It really gets you an extra life basically and not being dead right away. But this build is a bit more difficult due to missing those recovery and mitigation skills in this overall build. But the offset for that, it's maximum damage. So if you're looking at the damage overall, if you put it in, it has a raw attack of 437. Affinity is 20%, but with everything you go up with affinity, and really depends on your attack, which weapon you're using. I switch my weapons really between the elements which I need, or I just go for paralysis and overall. If you're looking at the defense is reaching around 400 with in this set, especially because you have the Ray Dau, you have the Thunder Resist, which really helps against Ray Dau, but the overall resistances are not that either. So overall, real good build, does a lot of damage and is really fun to play. Has a bit of recovery and a bit of using your evade extender, you have a little bit more room to dodge easier and missing attacks. But the raw damage is just fun to play. You're just cutting through monsters like they're paper. So it's if you get towards this, it's really fun. Basically having 2 minutes fights, and to be honest, we all want to get to that level where you have these fast fights and you have a lot of fun. Monster cannot hit you and you're just basically demolishing them. So overall a really good build and fun to try out. Going into the next build. So the next build is a little bit different because I also want to change a little bit. So this build goes with the Ebony Helm for that 2 levels of burst, Luminous Shroud for those 2 levels of agitator. Then arms, nothing really strange. We take the Ray Sand Braces and we have the Evade Extender again with the 2 decorations with the level 3 jewels, which is just awesome. We do have the Rage Sand Coil, which I basically take for the maximum might, and the Latent Pyre is just nice to have. And then I finish it off with the Mitsune Greaves, the B version. So this gives you 2 levels of extra burst. Using the talisman, the Exploited Charm, getting you Weakness Exploit level 2, which really helps you getting that level 5. And ending up with Corrupted Mantle. Let's quickly go to the decoration. So on the headpiece, I've got the Mighty Jewel. On the chest, I've got a Chain Jewel. And then for the arms and for the legs, I got the Tenderizing Jewel. So this is something different and a different kind of build, and the overall stats are quite fun, but it does have more drawbacks than the previous build. Critical boost level 5, and we have the critical eye level 1. Then we have Airborne 1 level 1 here because I've got the Flight Expert Jewel. Then we have Weakness Exploit level 5, and I think this is, especially with what I said earlier, Capcom is gonna look at more wound resistance, and it will see how effective Weakness Exploit will be in the future. So that's for me is a little bit of a drawback because this build does really rely on the Weakness Exploit level 5. And then we have Burst level 5, and Burst level 5 is just fun to play, and that's why I use this build sometimes. It's just something different. After hitting 5 successful times, you get a huge stat boost. And as you know, with the Insect Glaive, we hit a lot, so it's easy to activate, so giving you a huge stat boost just really adds your damage. Pair that with Maximum Mind level 3 and Agitator level 2, and Latent Power is just a dangerous cocktail. Right? Really fun, does a lot of damage. Overall, just really fun to play. Evade Extender is for your overall room, for your distance and your evasion. And then we have Ray Dau Voltage just for the Latent Power activation times. And there's where the build itself just falls down on it. You don't have earplugs like the previous build, so you're a little bit more prone to roars. And you don't really have, again, same, but you're missing one piece of Ray Dau. You're missing out on Guts or the Tenacity, where you have your Get Out of Jail Free card. This build is even more prone to damage, so you really need to look out, and that is the main drawback, right? You cannot really take a lot of hits, and you don't really have anything to recover other than normal ways. So here you're sometimes a little bit more reliant on potions or anything else. It really depends on your own skill, of course, but this build is a little bit more prone to that. Just understand that. For me personally, the first build is something I just go through. This build I use sometimes just on maybe some easier monsters or something like that, but just to switch it out because playing one set all the time, and I'm trying to do some other things and trying to especially just mix it up and trying to have fun with all these kind of builds and all these monsters, as I'm still not sick of Monster Hunter Wilds because I really like the game. It's really fun. These are the 2 builds, so really fun overall builds. So I hope you like the builds. They're fun to play. I hope you try them out. And that wraps up this build guide. Really looking forward to the summer updates for new armor pieces and fresh ways to squeeze out every bit of damage out of the Insect Glaive. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you tweak in these builds? What would be your go-to duel setup for the Glaive right now and why? And leave it in the comments below. I read every comment and your feedback helps shape the future guides. So drop your thoughts down below, even if you're just saying what build you're running. If this video helped, leave a like and consider subscribing for more Monster Hunter Wilds content. Until next time, stay sharp and happy hunting.